Take a ride through any one of the major cities in America and you'll find something strange. It wasn't supposed to end up like this. The whole of Western civilization started when some guys decided that maybe they wanted to live somewhere a little colder, and eventually they'd find that maybe there was a couple of other positives to this decision. Eventually they would try to invent more and more to have a better today than they did yesterday. But it seems in doing that, we've exceeded something in a certain way, and maybe we've given away something else for all our prosperity. Every decade since the 70s, a disgusting wriggled mass has grown ever stronger. The bureaucracy at the heart of each of our problems has torn down all of the previous markers of our world and replaced them with a bored malaise of bleak crow. So with people now no longer able to go any further west, many have tried unorthodox methods of escape, one of which, in particular, interests me the most. The band Everclear would release their sophomore album, Sparkle and Fade, in 1993, and it released at the exact right, perfect time. And, although today it's only known for one or two songs, to me, I think the way that it balances this dark, satirical, witty writing and these heavy, heavy subjects really makes it stand out, even past the point where I was just listening to Santa Monica and nothing else. The name of the game with this album is Bittersweet. It takes the face of these nameless cities in the middle of America with empty fields and empty ambitions and makes a whole sound out of them. The entire work is a pseudo-biographical look through the main singer Art Alexis's childhood and boredom-torn Oregon cities. And it's clear how well the band put themselves into their music. While many of the songs here are high tempo, they always carry with them some sort of baggage. There's a certain untouchable cynicism or insecurity to the album, which is always lightly sprinkled upon these molds, and they barely touch upon some of these concepts, which only makes them more noticeable and vivid. These first three tracks explore a different topic and highlight a couple desperately sad aspects of their lives. Two people that cannot feel emotions for each other without the things that make them not themselves. And yet, the actual textures of these songs are much more abrasive than that would describe them. And it's clear that they would much rather escape this place that they've gotten themselves into, where death is shrugged off as just another overdose. These horrid wills of their lives have become so regular that they can simply try to shrug them off, while still being grossly aware of them in their daily lives. What I can admire about these songs is the pure energy that they have, and while they don't explicitly discuss just how much they despise their environments until the end of this 3-track run, that slow progression to get to that point is really quite a ride. Eventually, not even the altered states can lead their relationship into the old heights it once acquired, and despite how much they really need each other, their spite starts growing past their affection. And these songs highlight the biggest problems with this entire project as well. Sometimes the ideas can be a little bit underdeveloped or feel a little underwhelming. My first listen through, I wrote off most of these songs, but now I've grown closer to them because I've listened to the album a bunch of times to try and analyze it, try and get through with it. But whenever you first listen to it, it's like, that was a fine song, I guess. This side is the most explicitly personal, and when the project really gets hit into high gear, the back-to-back Santa Monica, Summerland, Strawberry, Hartspark, Dollar Sign, and then the Twisted Side has got to be one of my favorite 5-track runs in any album ever. And those first two especially are essentially the same concept, yet somehow they're done so refreshingly. The latter of those brings that same feeling, but tenfold, especially with the juxtaposition of Strawberry. The textures of the side are so significantly varied as well. There's a little bit lacking of those distorted guitars heard so prominently in its first act, and instead they're often replaced with clean, high-pitched squealers which sound uniquely mushy and less spiky. And tonally, Strawberry and Hartspark Dollar Sign could literally not be any further. This section ends to a bit of a regression. It seems like the process has begun again, yet slightly differently. Her brand new skin is reminiscent of some kind of mix between these first two sections, describing the constant allure of drugs with a happy upbeat tone, short runtime and these buzzy guitars, but this process may equate, but the outcome seen in the next song, Nihilum, indicates a bit of a switch up towards his attitude. He finds out that his old girlfriend, which he almost died with in Strawberry, is now leaving their city and trying to look for greener pastures, which seems to bother him in an odd way. This extreme dissonance between the music and writing reaches fever points as his attempts to try and avoid the feelings this gives him almost shines louder than the entire song itself. But right as it ends, you're shown how much it really actually does genuinely affect him. You get a reminiscent description of these ills that have haunted him before he was even born through the story of his Aunt Virginia, someone who apparently just disappeared one day and hasn't stopped showing up in his dreams since. You get a recontextualization of everything you heard previously, and he only just now sees how much environment has truly disturbed him from the very beginning. It makes me honestly ask how many times in these previous songs he's actually dreamed or thought about her memory while doing the things that got her to be the exact same way that he is. These last final tracks wrap up the work quite nicely. You get two which further the story, and one which is more reminiscent of stuff you've already heard before. Pale Green Stars introduces the family around his decision in a very vivid light. He's built up a life around him, and yet he still cannot escape the things that made him the way that he is. And he can tell that his daughter is affected in the exact same way, spending all of her time alone in her room, trying to escape her family life while also having the same chemical smile as Alexicus himself. But this final song provides a lot of relief for the world. How can you live a happy life in a stunted world? The bureaucracy of normal life, which causes nothing but stagnation, is inescapable, just as the past is. Or at least they feel like that in the moment. The things that make you yourself are not permanently stuck to you in any physical sense, but the memories you form throughout your existence is really the thing that separates you instead. Whether they're your mistakes or your missed opportunities, these memories and your worst moments can never be forgotten. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you can always look to them for guidance. The name of this album is deceptively simple. At first it seems like it's referring to their wild ways of partying, which is kind of a nihilistic, stupid statement. But in some way they actually give it a much, much deeper meaning. The sparkling is not someone's spirit being born and then immediately fading like I initially thought. It's basically the sentiment that the best thing that you can achieve as a person is to feel the most. They refer to the characters' memories, emotions, and experiences fading away as all of their pain does as well. At this point in the album, all that the characters would ever want is death and reprieve, but they never end up receiving it. They assure each other that the best thing they can do is get lost in this fall, glimmer, sparkle, and fade, but I think by the end, they definitely change their mind. The sentiment of experiencing something so wonderful for such a short amount of time, only to be one of the only people in history to experience it, is not a healthy way of living. Escapism is not a healthy way of living, and the only way you can truly live is to try to be the best of the situation can make. I brought up Western exploration earlier, and while most of the most successful cultures are indeed Western, the ones that ended up in America specifically weren't the ones that went west, but instead the ones that went east.